There are places on this earth where the rules of nature no longer apply, where the land does not end and the sea does not begin, where the map changes twice a day, swallowed and released by tides that answer to nothing but the moon, where the roots of trees grow upward instead of down, reaching for air in a world that is half water, half shadow. In these forests, silence is not the absence of sound, it is a warning. But before we speak of what hunts here, we must first speak of what lives here. Because nothing in this place is what it appears to be. Look closely at the mud flats along the water's edge. At first glance, they seem empty. Just mud and roots and the slow pull of the tide. But then something moves, something small, deliberate, impossible. A fish, walking. The mud skipper pulls itself across the surface on its front fins, pausing to look around with eyes that sit on top of its head, like two small periscopes. It breathes air. It climbs roots. It lives in two worlds simultaneously, and it does so as if this were perfectly normal, as if the boundary between water and land were merely a suggestion. In most places on Earth, a walking fish would be the strangest thing you would ever see. Here, it is just the beginning. This is the Sundarbans, and nothing that lives here followed the rules. The Sundarbans spreads across the delta, where three of Asia's greatest rivers meet the Bay of Bengal, the Ganges, the Brahmaputra, the Meghna. Together, they have built over 10,000 square kilometers of mangrove forest, straddling the border between India and Bangladesh. It is the largest mangrove ecosystem on the planet, and it is unlike any other forest on Earth. The tides enter twice a day, pushing salt water deep into channels that wind between islands like veins in a living body. The forest floor shifts. Islands that existed yesterday may be partially submerged tomorrow. The entire landscape is in constant, slow negotiation between land and sea, and nothing that lives here can afford to stand still. Over 400 species of wildlife have made this their home. More than 260 species of birds navigate its waterways and canopies. Saltwater crocodiles patrol its rivers. Indian pythons move silently through its undergrowth. The Ganges River dolphin, nearly blind, navigates the dark channels by echolocation, reading the world through sound because light cannot reach it here. And somewhere in the shadows between the mangrove roots, moving without sound through water that carries no reflection, lives the Bengal tiger. Not a tiger that wandered here and stayed. Not a tiger that was driven here by the loss of its territory elsewhere. A tiger that evolved here, that was shaped by this place over generations until it became something that no other tiger on Earth has become. Something that learned to swim between islands, something that learned to read the tides, something that learned long ago that humans were prey. The villages that border the Sundarbans are unlike any other communities in the world. They sit at the edge of the forest like sentinels, connected to the interior by rivers that their inhabitants must navigate every day to survive. Fishing, collecting honey, cutting wood. The forest provides everything these communities need, and it demands a price that no other forest on Earth demands in return. Every person who enters the Sundarbans knows the risk. The honey collectors who venture deepest into the forest carry with them a tradition older than any written record. Before they enter the trees, they pray. They ask permission from Bonbibi, the goddess of the forest, the protector who, in local belief, holds dominion over the tigers and keeps them from taking human lives. They wear masks on the backs of their heads, full human faces painted or molded onto the rear of their helmets. Because the tigers of the Sundarbans attack from behind, they go for the nape of the neck, for the skull, and a face looking backward has, in some documented cases, given a hunter pause long enough for a person to survive. This is not superstition, this is adaptation. This is what it looks like when an entire human community has lived alongside an apex predator for so long that the predator's behavior has shaped their culture, their clothing, their prayers, and their architecture. Between 50 and 100 people are killed by tigers in the Sundarbans every year. Not in history, now, every year. In one of the most densely populated regions on Earth, where millions of people live within kilometers of a forest that contains one of the highest concentrations of man-eating tigers anywhere on the planet. And still, they go in, because they have no choice, because the forest is their livelihood, because the alternative is starvation, and because in some way that is difficult to articulate but impossible to deny, the forest is also their home. The Bengal tiger that lives in the Sundarbans is the same species as the Bengal tigers that live in the forests of central India, in the reserves of Nepal, in the protected areas of Bhutan. Genetically, they are nearly identical, but they are not the same animal. The Sundarbans tiger swims, not occasionally, not when forced to by circumstance, but as a fundamental part of its daily life. It crosses channels that stretch for hundreds of meters, moving between islands in search of prey, covering distances of up to 30 kilometers in a single day, through a landscape that is as much water as land. Its paws are broader than those of its inland cousins, better suited for navigating mudflats. Its behavior is bolder, its relationship with humans fundamentally different. In the forests of central India, tigers avoid humans. They detect our scent, our sound, our presence, and they move away. Centuries of being hunted have encoded caution into their behavior. In the Sundarbans, they do not move away. Scientists have debated for decades why the tigers here behave so differently. Several theories have emerged, none of them conclusive. The water in the Sundarbans is saline, far saltier than fresh water, and some researchers believe that the chronic dehydration this causes may alter the tiger's temperament, making them more aggressive. Others point to the geography itself, a landscape with no deep interior to retreat to, where tigers and humans are forced into proximity that simply does not exist in other habitats. Still others suggest that the answer lies in history, in generations of tigers that grew up in a place where humans entered their territory regularly, where the scent of people was not a signal to flee, but a signal that prey was near. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. Here the tiger does not see a human being and decide to avoid it. Here it calculates. Watch the chital deer at the water's edge in the early morning. It moves carefully, its spotted coat catching what little light filters through the canopy. Its ears rotate constantly, reading the air for sounds that do not belong. It lowers its head to drink, and in that moment of vulnerability, its eyes still scan the tree line. The deer knows something is there. It can feel it in the way the forest has gone quiet, in the way the birds stopped calling a few minutes ago, in the weight of the silence that has settled over the water. The tiger watches from the shadows without moving, without breathing visibly, without making any sound that the forest does not already contain. It has been watching for 11 minutes. When it moves through the water, not around it. The channel between the bank and the far side is 30 meters wide, and the tiger enters it without hesitation, its body low, its head above the surface, moving with a stillness that makes it look less like an animal swimming, and more like a current flowing in the wrong direction. It emerges on the other side in silence, and the forest that had gone quiet goes quieter still. But in the rivers of the Sundarbans, the tiger is not the only predator that the fishermen fear. Beneath the surface of those same dark channels, in the same water that the tigers cross between islands, something else waits. The saltwater crocodile is the largest living reptile on Earth. In the Sundarbans, individuals have been measured at over 5 meters in length, their bodies armored in scales that have remained virtually unchanged for 80 million years. They are older than the tigers by an almost incomprehensible margin, and they are patient in a way that only truly ancient things can be. They lie submerged in the channels for hours, visible only as a slight disturbance in the surface, a shape that the mind wants to read as a log or a sandbar until the moment it moves. The fishermen who work these rivers understand both dangers. They understand that the tiger may come from the bank, low and fast, aimed at the back of the neck, and they understand that the crocodile may come from below, from the water they are kneeling beside, from the darkness that their nets hang into. Above the surface, the tiger. Below, the crocodile. And in between, a small wooden boat and a human being trying to feed their family. There are people in the Sundarbans who have lost fathers to tigers, whose brothers were taken from boats, whose neighbors disappeared into the forest and were never found. And when you ask these same people whether the tigers should be protected, whether the forest should be preserved, whether the government is right to restrict fishing in the core zones to allow the tiger population to recover, many of them say yes. Not because they have forgotten what the forest took from them, but because they understand something that is very difficult to understand from a distance. The forest is alive because the tiger is alive. The mangroves grow because the ecosystem is intact, and the ecosystem is intact in part because the tiger sits at the top of it, regulating the populations below. Remove the tiger, and the deer populations explode, and the vegetation is stripped and the root systems weaken, and the banks begin to erode, and the storms that come in off the Bay of Bengal find less resistance, and the flooding worsens, and the villages that sit at the edge of the forest suffer. The tiger that kills people is also the tiger that protects people. This is the paradox of the Sundarbans. And the people who live there hold it every day, not as an abstraction, but as the central fact of their existence. Conservation teams now move through the Sundarbans with GPS collars and camera traps and decades of accumulated data. They track individual tigers by their stripe patterns as unique as fingerprints, building databases of behavior and territory and movement. They work to reduce conflict, to compensate families who lose livestock, to create buffer zones where human activity and tiger territory do not overlap. It is slow work. It is imperfect work. And it is work that exists in a place that is running out of time. The Sundarbans is sinking. Sea levels in the Bay of Bengal are rising faster than the global average, driven by the warming of the Indian Ocean and the subsidence of the delta itself under the weight of the sediment it has accumulated over millennia. Islands that appeared on maps a generation ago have disappeared beneath the water. Villages that existed for centuries have been abandoned. Families that fished the same waters as their grandparents have been relocated to higher ground that does not exist here, because there is no higher ground. The projections are stark. If current trends continue, significant portions of the Sundarbans could be submerged within the next 50 years. The mangroves that have survived storms and tides and centuries of human pressure may not survive the combination of saltwater intrusion, rising seas, and increasingly violent cyclones that a warming world is delivering to this coastline. What happens to 100 tigers when their forest disappears? What happens to the fishing communities when the mangroves that protect their coastline are gone? What happens to a place that has existed for thousands of years as the only location on Earth where this particular negotiation between humans and tigers has been played out generation after generation? In the mudflats and river channels and shadows of the world's largest mangrove forest? These are not hypothetical questions. They are questions that the people of the Sundarbans are already beginning to live. At the edge of the water, as the tide begins to turn, the mud skipper moves again across the surface of the mudflat. It pauses. It looks out across the channel with those improbable eyes, reading a world that exists between two states, belonging fully to neither. It has survived here for millions of years, through floods and storms and the slow drift of continents, through the arrival of humans and the arrival of the boats that followed, and the arrival of the nets and the motors, and all the apparatus of a species that also refuses to belong fully to one world. Somewhere in the forest behind it, a tiger moves through water without sound. Somewhere on the river, a small boat carries people who understand the risk and enter anyway. And the Sundarbans holds all of it. The predator and the prey, the ancient and the endangered, the impossible fish that walks, and the impossible forest that breathes with the tide. This place has always existed between worlds. The only question that remains is whether we will allow it to continue.